A man stood over a body, smoke still curling from his gun. He had sworn he would never kill again. But some oaths cannot be kept. 3 weeks earlier, he was a broken ex-ranger, drinking himself to death beside 2 graves he visited every morning. His wife, his 6-year-old daughter, burned alive in a fire everyone called an accident. Then a woman appeared at a train station, rejected, humiliated, thrown away like garbage by the man who ordered her as a mail-order bride. She had cigarette scars hidden under her sleeves and a scalpel in her bag. He took her home, not out of kindness, but because she didn't cry, and he needed to understand how. But here's what neither of them knew. The man who burned his family was wearing his dead wife's wedding ring, and the boy sleeping in his barn. He was the brother of the last person Ethan killed, and he came looking for revenge. 3 broken people, 1 ranch, and a truth that's about to blow everything apart. Do not skip this story. Do not skip this. The lesson. This story teaches us something raw and real. Second chances don't ask if you deserve them. They just show up. And the only question is whether you're brave enough to let them in. You cannot undo the past, but you can choose what you build from the wreckage. Home isn't a place. It's the people you refuse to give up on. If this story hit you somewhere deep, drop a comment. Which moment shook you the most? That like button takes 1 second, but it helps this story reach someone who's been carrying their own weight alone. Share it with someone who needs to believe that broken doesn't mean finished. And if you haven't subscribed yet, you're going to want to. Stories like this land here every week. Hit subscribe, turn on the bell, and I'll see you in the next one. Ethan Cole stood over the body of Joshua Briggs, smoke still curling from the barrel of his Colt. The man's eyes were open, staring at nothing. Blood pooled beneath him, black in the moonlight, soaking into the Texas dirt like rain that came too late. "I swore I would never kill again," Ethan said to the woman standing behind him. His voice was hollow, scraped clean of everything but exhaustion. But some oaths cannot be kept. Claire Maddox did not answer. She simply stepped forward and took his hand, the one not holding the gun, and held it tight. In the distance, thunder rolled across the plains. The smell of rain hung in the air, mixing with gunpowder and copper. Somewhere, a choice had been made. Somewhere, a line had been crossed. But to understand how a broken ranger and a discarded bride came to stand over a dead man in the Texas night, we need to go back. 3 weeks earlier, to a train station at the edge of nowhere, to the moment everything changed. Ethan Cole had buried enough people to know the smell of death, and the woman sitting on that trunk at the train station carried it on her like perfume. But we are getting ahead of ourselves. Before the woman, before the train station, before any of it, there was the cemetery. 5 in the morning. The sky was still purple at the edges, stars fading into the coming light. Ethan stood before 2 graves on the hill overlooking his ranch, his hat in his hands, his boots planted in the dry Texas dirt. The headstones were simple. Sarah Cole, beloved wife. Emma Cole, beloved daughter. Below the names, the same date, the same terrible night. He did not speak. He never spoke here anymore. What was there to say? He had said everything in the first weeks when he would come here and talk to them like they could still hear. Tell them about the cattle, about the weather, about how much he missed the sound of Sarah singing while she cooked. But the dead do not answer. And after a while, the silence becomes its own kind of conversation. Ethan placed 2 wildflowers on Emma's grave. Purple prairie verbena, her favorite. She used to pick them by the handful and bring them to Sarah, dirt still clinging to the roots, her small face beaming with pride. His hands trembled. Burn scars climbed his right forearm, the skin puckered and tight, a permanent reminder of the night he had pulled their bodies from the flames. 2 years later, and the scars still ached when the weather changed. He took a pull from his whiskey flask. The liquor burned going down, but it was a familiar burn, a welcome one. God and I have not spoken in 2 years, he said to no one. Do not see why we would start now. He turned away from the graves and walked back down the hill toward his horse. The ride into Red Canyon took most of the morning. Ethan needed supplies: flour, coffee, salt pork, the simple necessities of a man who ate to survive, not to live. Red Canyon was not much of a town. A main street of packed dirt, a general store, a saloon, a church with a crooked steeple, and a train station that saw maybe 2 trains a week. Folks here minded their own business, which suited Ethan just fine. He was tying his horse to the post outside the general store when he noticed the boy, 16, maybe 17, thin as a fence rail, with dark hair that needed cutting and clothes that had seen better days. He sat on an overturned crate outside the store, watching Ethan with an intensity that went beyond casual observation. "Help you with something?" Ethan said, his voice flat. The boy stood. "Name is Tommy Dawson. I am looking for work." Ethan barely glanced at him. "I do not need anyone. Your horse is favoring her left foreleg. Could use a proper shoeing. I am good with horses." Ethan paused. The kid was right. He had noticed the slight hitch in the mare's gait himself this morning. Observant boy. But Ethan shook his head and walked toward the store. "I work alone." Behind him, he heard the boy sit back down. Did not hear him leave. Inside the general store, Ethan gathered his supplies in silence. The owner, a portly man named Henderson, made small talk about the weather and the drought and the price of cattle, but Ethan only grunted in response. He paid, loaded the goods into his saddlebags, and stepped back onto the boardwalk. That was when he heard the commotion. A crowd had gathered at the train station. Not a big crowd, maybe a dozen people, but in a town this size, that was practically an event. Ethan could hear raised voices, laughter that had a cruel edge to it. None of his business. He had supplies to get home, cattle to check on, a ranch that was slowly dying no matter how hard he worked to keep it alive. He should just ride out. But something made him walk toward the station instead. Call it instinct. Call it curiosity. Call it the same stubborn refusal to look away that had gotten him into trouble more times than he could count during his years as a ranger. The crowd parted as he approached, and he saw her. A woman sat on a wooden trunk in the middle of the platform. She was maybe 30, with brown hair pulled back from a face that might have been pretty once, before hardship drew its lines around her mouth and eyes. She wore a faded blue calico dress that had been washed so many times the fabric looked soft as old paper. Standing over her was Joshua Briggs. Ethan knew Briggs. Most folks in Red Canyon did. The man owned a small spread north of town, owed money to half the merchants on Main Street, and had a reputation for being mean when he drank, which was often. Right now, Briggs was playing to the crowd. "I ordered a wife, not a worn-out spinster," he said loud enough for everyone to hear. "Look at her. You would think they would at least send something worth the postage." Laughter from the onlookers, a few uncomfortable shuffles from the women present, but no one spoke up. The woman on the trunk did not cry, did not beg, did not even seem to hear the insults being thrown at her. She sat rigid, chin lifted, staring straight ahead as if Briggs did not exist. Ethan had seen that look before, on soldiers who had been through too much, on prisoners who had given up hope, on his own face, reflected in the mirror on mornings when the whiskey was not enough to drown the memories. Briggs spat at her feet. "Waste of my time and my money." He turned to the crowd. "Anyone else want her? Free to a good home." More laughter. Then Briggs walked away, his boots heavy on the wooden platform. The crowd dispersed, still snickering, still shaking their heads at the spectacle. The woman did not move. Ethan stood there for a long moment, watching. The station master, an old-timer named Henry Tucker, came to stand beside him. "Been sitting there 4 hours," Henry said quietly. "Will not eat, will not drink, will not come inside. Just waiting." Waiting for what? Hell if I know. Next train does not come through till Thursday. That is 4 days. Ethan nodded slowly. He should go. This was not his problem. He had his own troubles, his own grief, his own slow march toward whatever end was coming for him. He started to turn away. Then he saw the woman reach into her traveling bag. Her movements were calm, practiced. She pulled back the leather flap just enough to check something inside. Ethan caught a glimpse of what she was checking. A leather roll, the kind doctors use to carry instruments. And inside the roll, catching the afternoon light, the gleam of a scalpel. She handled it like a woman who knew exactly what it was for. Ethan changed direction. His shadow fell across her before he spoke. She did not look up. "If you are here to gawk, the show is over," she said. Her voice was steady, tired, but steady. "I am here to offer you work." Now she looked at him. Gray eyes, clear as creek water, but with walls built behind them. Walls meant to keep people out. "I am not a whore," she said flatly. "Did not ask you to be one. I need someone to cook and keep house. Pay is fair, work is honest." She studied him. Her gaze moved across his face, the calluses on his hands, the way he held himself, reading him the way some people read books. "Why?" she asked. Ethan could have said many things. Could have told her about the empty house waiting for him, the silence that pressed against him like something alive, the way he had not eaten a proper meal in 2 years because cooking reminded him too much of Sarah. Instead, he said, "Because you have not cried. And in my experience, people who do not cry when they should are either dead inside or too strong to break. Either way, you will last longer than most." Long pause. The woman's hand moved away from her bag, away from the surgical kit. "When do we leave?" she asked. "Name is Ethan Cole." She stood, brushing dust from her dress with hands that did not shake. "Clara Maddox. Most folks call me Claire." They walked to his wagon in silence. Ethan loaded her trunk in the back while she climbed onto the seat. He did not offer to help her up, and she did not wait for the offer. As he climbed up beside her and took the reins, he noticed the boy again, Tommy Dawson, still sitting on that crate outside the general store, watching them leave with those intense, dark eyes. Ethan clicked his tongue, and the horses started forward. Claire Maddox did not look back at the platform where her last hope had died. She had spent 29 years looking back. It had never once changed where she was going. She did not know that the man beside her carried secrets darker than her own, did not know that the town behind them held a murderer who slept with her husband's wedding ring on his finger. All she knew was that for the first time in 2 years, she was moving forward. And somewhere in the back of her mind, a thought took shape. Maybe, just maybe, this lonely cowboy needed saving as much as she did. Claire Maddox had spent 15 years reading people the way other women read recipes. The man beside her with his burned hands and 2 old eyes, he was not lonely. He was serving a sentence, 2 hours on the wagon, and neither of them had spoken more than a handful of words. The horses plodded along a dirt road that cut through miles of brown grass and scrub brush. The sun beat down without mercy, and Claire could feel sweat trickling down her spine beneath her dress. She used the silence to observe. His hands held the reins loose but ready. Calluses on his right palm, the kind that came from years of gripping a pistol. The way he sat, always able to see in every direction at once. Shoulders square, eyes scanning. Former lawman, she thought, or soldier, or both. And those burn scars on his forearm. He did not try to hide them, but she noticed the way his sleeve was rolled down just enough to cover the worst of it. A man ashamed of his wounds. "You were law once, were you not?" Claire said finally. "Ranger, marshal." Ethan glanced at her, surprised she had guessed. "Ranger? 5 years. Long time ago. Why did you quit?" His jaw tightened. The muscles worked beneath the weathered skin of his face. He did not answer. Claire nodded. "Fair enough. I used to be things too." The road climbed a gentle rise, and then the ranch came into view. Claire took it in with a single sweep of her eyes. Weathered boards gone silver with age, a sagging porch, a windmill standing motionless against the sky, its blades still as death. 2 rocking chairs on the porch, one large, one small, both empty, both waiting for people who would never return. But what struck her most was the window. On the east side of the house, one window had been boarded shut from the inside. Not just covered, boarded. Nailed closed. Sealed up like a wound someone could not bear to look at. "How long have you lived here alone, Mr. Cole?" Ethan's hands tightened on the reins. 2 years, 3 months, 8 days. He said it automatically, like he had been counting every single one. Claire did not ask about the window. Not yet. The inside of the house was exactly what she had expected. Dust on every surface. A kitchen that had not seen a proper meal in months. 1 plate, 1 cup, 1 fork by the sink. This man did not live here. He existed here. The main room held a fireplace, a table, 2 chairs. A rifle hung above the mantel, well oiled and cared for, even if everything else had been neglected. In the corner, a bottle of whiskey sat half empty beside a single glass. "I will show you to your room," Ethan said. He led her down a short hallway. 3 doors. He opened the middle one. The room was small but clean. A narrow bed, a washstand, a window looking out toward the hills. A quilt folded at the foot of the bed. Handmade, faded colors and careful stitches that spoke of love and patience. Claire set her bag on the bed. Her eyes moved to the door at the end of the hall, the one that was closed, the one that corresponded to the boarded window she had seen from outside. "What is in that room?" she asked. Ethan's face went still. "That room stays closed. I was not going to open it. I just asked. It was my daughter's room." He spoke without emotion, the words flat and empty. "She was 6. Her name was Emma. She died in the fire with her mother. Beat. I do not go in there. Neither will you." He walked out. The screen door slapped shut behind him. Claire stood alone in the small room, listening to his footsteps cross the porch, hearing the creak of one of those rocking chairs as he sat down. She looked at the closed door at the end of the hall for a long moment. Then she unpacked her bag and went to work. The kitchen was a disaster. Spoiled food in the pantry, grease caked on the stove, dust thick enough to write your name in. Claire spent the rest of the afternoon cleaning, not because she felt she had to prove herself, but because the work gave her hands something to do while her mind sorted through everything she had learned. A former ranger with burn scars, a wife and daughter dead in a fire, a room sealed shut like a tomb, a man who counted the days of his solitude the way prisoners count the walls of their cells. "What are you running from, Ethan Cole?" she murmured to herself. "And what are you running toward?" By evening, the kitchen was clean enough to use. Claire found flour, lard, salt. A few eggs in the chicken coop out back, the hens half wild from neglect but still laying. She made biscuits, fried some salt pork, scrambled the eggs. When she called Ethan in for supper, he looked at the table like he had never seen one before. "You cooked," he said. "That is generally what a cook does." He stood there, clearly intending to eat standing up the way he must have done for 2 years. Quick, mechanical, food as fuel, and nothing more. "Sit down," Claire said. "We are not animals." Ethan stared at her. No one had spoken to him like that since Sarah died. He sat. They ate in silence, but it was a different kind of silence than before. Less empty. More like 2 people getting used to each other's presence. When the plates were clean, Claire gathered them and took them to the pump. "That was good," Ethan said quietly. "Thank you." Claire did not turn around. "You are welcome." That night, she woke from a nightmare. Victor's hands on her, his voice in her ear. "No one will believe you. I am a doctor. You are nothing." She sat up in the narrow bed, heart pounding, sweat cold on her skin. The scar on her wrist ached, the one Victor had given her the night she finally fought back, when she grabbed his scalpel and defended herself. She went to the window. Outside in the darkness, she could see Ethan sitting on the porch, the whiskey bottle beside him, half empty now. He was not drinking, just sitting, staring at nothing. Or maybe staring at the boarded window. At the room he could not bring himself to enter. Claire pulled on her shawl and stepped outside. Ethan did not look up when she sat down in the other rocking chair. The small one. Emma's chair, she realized. Neither of them spoke. After a while, Claire asked, "Does it help?" "The whiskey." "No." "Then why do you drink it?" "Because it is better than remembering sober." Claire sat with that. She understood it. She had her own methods of forgetting, her own ways of surviving the nights when the memories came hunting. She did not reach for the bottle, did not offer comfort, did not try to fix what clearly could not be fixed. She just stayed. They sat there together, two strangers sharing the same darkness, until the sky began to lighten in the east. Then Claire stood. "I will make breakfast," she said. Ethan nodded, and for the first time in 2 years, when he came inside to eat, he sat down at the table without being told. It was not much, just a small crack in the walls he had built around himself. But it was something. That night, Claire lay awake listening to Ethan's footsteps on the porch. Back and forth, back and forth, the rhythm of a man patrolling his own prison. She wondered what he was guarding against. The things outside the house, or the things still trapped within it. And in the darkness, she touched the scar on her wrist, the one Victor had given her the night she finally fought back, and wondered how long it would be before her own past came hunting. Ethan Cole had not drawn his gun in anger for 5 years. But when he saw the 3 riders coming down the road toward his ranch, hands resting easy on their holsters, his fingers remembered exactly where the trigger was. A week had passed since Claire arrived. 7 days that had changed the rhythm of the house in ways Ethan had not expected. She cooked meals that tasted like something beyond mere survival. She cleaned without being asked, fixed things that had been broken for months, brought order to a place that had fallen into decay. And she did it all without once asking for anything in return. They had found a rhythm together. She cooked, he worked the land. They ate together, said little, and went to their separate corners when the day was done. Few words, but fewer silences now. What surprised Ethan most was that he did not mind having her there. For 2 years, he had wanted nothing but solitude. Now the sound of another person moving through the house, the smell of coffee brewing in the morning, the simple presence of someone else breathing the same air. It was not suffocating. It was something else. Something he was not ready to name. On the 7th day, Ethan was mending a fence when Claire came to bring him water. She walked across the dry grass with a canteen in her hand, and he found himself watching her. She moved differently than Sarah had, more deliberate, more guarded, like someone who had learned to be careful about where she put her feet. "Thank you," he said when she handed him the canteen. "Your hands," she said. "What about them?" Claire turned to go, then stopped. "Those are not from scrubbing floors. I have seen hands like that before. Nurses who assist in surgery. Doctors who work with their instruments every day." Ethan watched her walk back to the house. He did not ask what she meant. He recognized the shape of a story that was not ready to be told. That afternoon, the boy came back. Tommy Dawson appeared at the property line, thinner than before, his clothes dusty from days on the road. He stood there watching the house until Claire noticed him from the kitchen window. She did not ask Ethan's permission. She just walked out to the boy and said, "You look hungry. Come inside." Ethan was furious. "This is not a charity house," he said when he came in and found Tommy sitting at the table shoveling beans into his mouth like he had not eaten in days. "Then what is it?" Claire shot back. Her voice had steel in it. "Because right now it looks like a tomb with a kitchen." Ethan felt like he had been slapped. No one had spoken to him like that since Sarah died. Sarah, who never let him get away with self-pity. Sarah, who called him out when he was being a fool. He looked at the boy. Tommy had stopped eating, watching the 2 adults with wary eyes. "1 week," Ethan said finally. "Then he finds somewhere else." "He can stay in the barn," Claire said. Ethan walked out, but he did not say no. That evening, Claire brought food to Tommy in the barn. The boy was sitting in a pile of hay, looking at something in his hands. When he heard her footsteps, he quickly shoved it into his pocket. "What is that?" Claire asked, setting down the plate. "Nothing." Looked like a photograph. Tommy's jaw tightened. It is my brother. He died 5 years ago. Claire sat down on a bale of hay. I'm sorry. How did he die? The boy's face darkened. A lawman killed him, a Texas Ranger. Said my brother was holding a gun, but Sam was a hostage. The Comancheros took him. He never would have pointed a weapon at anyone. What happened to the Ranger? Tommy's voice went cold. He quit. Could not face what he did, I guess. A coward. Claire watched the boy's face, the grief there, the anger, the determination. As she left the barn, she heard Tommy whisper to himself, I am going to find him, Sam. I promise. The next morning, the riders came. 3 of them, coming down the road from town. The morning sun was behind them, turning them into dark shapes against the light. But Ethan did not need to see their faces to know who they were. The lead rider was Silas Kane. Ethan had not seen Silas in 5 years, not since they had both worn the star of the Texas Rangers, not since the night in the Comanchero camp, when everything went wrong. Silas had changed. Harder around the eyes, thicker around the middle. He wore his gun low on his hip, the way hired guns do when they want people to notice. The 2 men with him were strangers, young, mean-looking, the kind of men who worked for whoever paid best and asked no questions. Ethan stepped off the porch to meet them, his hand resting easy on his holster. Been a long time, Cole, Silas said. Not long enough, Kane. What do you want? Silas smiled, but there was no warmth in it. Judge Holbrook sends his regards. He would like to request a meeting. Holbrook. Ethan knew the name. Everyone in the county did. Marcus Holbrook was the largest landowner in the region, the county judge, and by most accounts the man who really ran things around here. Tell the judge I am not interested. Silas shrugged. He said you might say that. Also said to remind you that refusal would be unwise. Is that a threat? Just a message, Cole. Just a message. One of the other riders, a thick-necked man with a scar on his chin, had been eyeing the house. His gaze moved to Claire, who had appeared in the doorway. Well now, the man said, who is this pretty thing? He swung down from his horse and started toward the porch. Stay where you are, Ethan said. The man ignored him. He reached the bottom of the porch steps and looked up at Claire with a smile that made Ethan's skin crawl. Do not be shy, sweetheart. I do not bite. Much. He reached for Claire's arm. What happened next took maybe 2 seconds. Claire's hand came out of her apron, a flash of silver. The man screamed and jerked backward, clutching his palm. Blood poured between his fingers. A clean cut, maybe 4 inches long, slicing across the meat of his hand. Claire stood on the porch, a scalpel in her grip, her face completely calm. The next one goes across your throat, she said. Unlike your hand, I will not miss anything important. The man staggered back toward his horse, cursing and bleeding. Silas stared at Claire with something that might have been respect. Where the hell did you find her, Cole? Silas asked. Ethan was still processing what he had just seen. She found me. Silas gathered his reins. The wounded man was being helped onto his horse by the 3rd rider, still cursing and promising revenge. Tell your woman to watch herself, Silas said. People who cut Holbrook's men tend to have accidents. Tell Holbrook to keep his men to himself. Silas turned his horse. As he rode away, he looked back over his shoulder. His expression had changed. Less threatening now, more like a warning. Watch your back, Cole. Things are about to get complicated. Then they were gone, dust rising behind them. Ethan turned to Claire. She was cleaning the scalpel with a handkerchief, her movements precise and practiced. You are a nurse, he said. I was. Massachusetts General Hospital, surgical ward. Surgical nurses do not usually know how to cut people. Claire looked at him. Her gray eyes were steady. They do when people try to cut them first. Long pause. There is a man in Boston who thinks he owns me, she said. I disagreed. That is why I am here. Ethan recognized the shape of what she was telling him, the shape of violation, of survival, of running. "If he finds you," he said. Claire met his eyes. "Then I will stop running." Ethan nodded slowly. "Can you shoot?" "I can learn. Then we start tomorrow." That night, Claire brought supper to Tommy in the barn. The boy ate quickly, barely looking up. "You saw what happened," Claire said. Tommy nodded. "You cut that man. He had it coming." Tommy was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "My brother Sam, he was not violent. He was kind. He wanted to be a teacher. When the Comancheros took him, I know he must have been scared. And that ranger just shot him like he was nobody." Claire did not say anything. She just listened. "I am going to find that ranger," Tommy said. His voice was quiet but hard. "And I am going to look him in the eye. I want to know why. I want him to know what he took from me." "And then what?" Tommy did not answer, but his hands had curled into fists. Claire left him alone with his grief. But as she walked back to the house, she thought about secrets, about the things people carry, about the ways the past has of catching up with us no matter how far we run. Inside, Ethan was sitting at the kitchen table cleaning his pistol. The lamplight caught the burn scars on his arm. "They will come back," Claire said. "I know. What does Holbrook want?" Ethan set down the pistol. "My land. He has been buying up property all over the county. Anyone who will not sell, he squeezes, cuts off their water, drives off their cattle, burns their barns. Like what happened to your family." Ethan went still. "I am not accusing you of anything," Claire said quickly. "I am just asking." Long silence. When Ethan spoke, his voice was rough. They said the fire was an accident. Lantern knocked over, but Sarah was careful. She never would have left a lantern burning near curtains. Her mother told her once it was dangerous, and Sarah never forgot anything. "You think someone set it. I think someone wanted me gone. And when I was not here, they found another way." Claire sat down across from him. "Have you tried to find out who?" "I have tried. I have failed." Ethan picked up the pistol again, ran an oiled cloth over the barrel. "But lately I have been thinking. Maybe I have been looking in the wrong direction." "What do you mean?" "That man today. The one you cut. I recognized him. He works at Joshua Briggs' ranch." "Briggs?" "The man who rejected me at the station. The same." Ethan's jaw tightened. "And I have been wondering why a man like Briggs would have connections to a man like Holbrook." Claire thought about this. "Do you think Briggs was involved in what happened to your family?" "I do not know, but I intend to find out." Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the windows. The dry season showed no signs of breaking. The cattle were dying, the land was dying, but something else was beginning, something that felt like purpose. "We should get some sleep," Claire said. "Tomorrow is going to be a long day." "Tomorrow you learn to shoot," Ethan agreed. "Tomorrow everything changes." He did not know how right he was. They dug 14 hours a day under a sun that felt like God's own punishment. And somewhere between the blisters and the aching muscles, two people who had forgotten how to trust started remembering. Ethan explained the plan over breakfast. A mile east of the ranch, the land dipped into a natural basin between two low hills. If they built up the banks, created a dam to catch runoff, they might be able to hold enough water to survive the drought. "Will Holbrook not object?" Claire asked. "Holbrook claims he owns every drop of water in the county. He is wrong." "Right. But being wrong has never stopped him yet, so you are going to build it anyway." Ethan looked at her. "I am done letting other men decide what I can and cannot do." Claire picked up a shovel. "Then we had better get started." Tommy insisted on helping. The boy worked without complaint, stronger than he looked, hauling rocks and digging trenches alongside them. Ethan watched him sometimes with a strange expression, like he was trying to remember something he could not quite place. "What is it?" Claire asked one afternoon, catching Ethan staring. "Nothing. He just reminds me of someone." He could not place the memory, but it was there, scratching at the back of his mind. Days passed. They fell into a rhythm. Wake before dawn, eat breakfast, ride out to the dam site, work until the sun became unbearable. Rest in the shade during the hottest hours, work again until dark, return to the ranch. Eat, sleep, repeat. Claire's hands blistered, then hardened. Her shoulders ached. Her back screamed every morning when she stood up. But she did not complain. Neither did Tommy. And somewhere in the shared misery of the work, walls began to come down. One evening, Ethan rode into town alone for supplies. Claire was teaching Tommy how to bandage a wound properly, a skill she thought might come in handy. When Ethan returned, his face was dark. "What happened?" Claire asked. "Someone broke the window at Henderson's general store. Left a message in ash on the wall." "What message?" "Cole's dam equals Cole's grave." Tommy stood up. "Who did it?" Ethan's jaw worked. "I do not know, but I have my suspicions." Joshua Briggs was standing across the street, watching me when I came out, smiling. "The man who rejected me," Claire said. "The same." Ethan set down the supplies he had brought. "Something is going on here, something bigger than a dam or water rights." That night they worked late at the dam site. The moon was full, casting enough light to see by. Claire and Ethan sat resting against a boulder, their bodies exhausted, their minds still turning. "Can I ask you something?" Claire said. "Go ahead." "Why did you really bring me here, that day at the train station? A man like you does not just take in strays out of kindness." Ethan was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. "I saw the way you sat there, the way you held your head up even when that fool was humiliating you. You did not break. You did not beg. And I thought about how I had spent 2 years trying to break myself, trying to disappear into the bottom of a bottle because I could not face what I had lost." He picked up a handful of dirt, let it sift through his fingers. "You were stronger than me, and I guess I thought maybe some of that strength might rub off." Claire did not know what to say, so she told him her story instead. "There was a doctor at the hospital where I worked, Victor Ashworth. He was wealthy, respected. Everyone thought he was a great man." She stared out at the basin that would one day hold water. He was not. What did he do? He decided I belonged to him. When I disagreed, he did not take it well. "Is that where the scar came from? The one on your wrist?" Claire looked down at her hand. "No. The scar came from when I fought back, when I took his own scalpel and used it on him." She heard Ethan's intake of breath. "I did not kill him, just marked him. But after that, he told everyone I had stolen morphine from the hospital, made it so I could never work again, made it so no one would believe me. So you ran." "I ran all the way to Texas, answered an advertisement for a mail-order bride because it was the only way I could think of to disappear. And when Briggs rejected me, she laughed bitterly. I thought my life was over, but it was not." "No." She looked at Ethan. "It was not." They sat in silence for a while. Then Ethan spoke. Sarah sang when she cooked. He did not look at Claire, just stared at the empty basin. Emma wanted to catch every butterfly in Texas. She had a collection, kept them in a book pressed between the pages. His voice cracked. "The fire started at 2 in the morning. I was 20 miles away looking for cattle that had wandered off. By the time I got back, there was nothing left." Claire reached over and took his hand. It was the first time she had touched him deliberately. "I am sorry. Me too. Do you know what started it?" Ethan's grip tightened on her hand. "They said it was an accident. Lantern knocked over. But Sarah was careful. She never would have left a lantern burning near curtains. You think someone set it deliberately? I know they did. I just could not prove it, until now." Ethan looked at her. "Maybe, maybe not. But I intend to find out." The next day, Ethan went into town again. He needed nails for the dam, supplies that could not wait. But his real purpose was different. He stopped by the pawn shop first. It was a small, dusty place, crammed with the cast-off possessions of desperate people. Ethan had walked past it 100 times without ever going in. This time, something in the window caught his eye. A gold wedding band with a small sapphire set in the center. Sarah's ring. He would have known it anywhere. He had saved for 3 months to buy it. Had slipped it on her finger in the little church on their wedding day. Had watched her wear it every day for 8 years. And now it was sitting in a pawn shop window in Red Canyon. Ethan walked inside, his heart hammering. That ring in the window, he said to the owner, the gold one with the sapphire. Who brought it in? The owner, a nervous little man named Pruitt, looked uncomfortable. Look, I do not want any trouble. Who brought it in? Pruitt swallowed. Fella brought it in about a year back, said it was his mother's. Name. Look, Mr. Cole, I really do not think. Ethan reached across the counter and grabbed the man's collar. His face was inches away. The name. Pruitt's voice came out in a squeak. Briggs. Joshua Briggs. Ethan let him go. He walked out of that shop with his wife's ring in his pocket and murder in his heart. Joshua Briggs, the man who had humiliated Claire at the station, the man who smiled when Ethan's store was threatened. He had been wearing Sarah's ring, which meant he had been in the house the night it burned. Ethan's hand moved to his holster. He could end this today. Right now. Walk over to Briggs' house and put a bullet in the man's brain. But he stopped. Because somewhere at the ranch, a 16-year-old boy was waiting. A boy who trusted him. A boy who reminded him of someone, though he still could not place the memory. And Ethan Cole remembered what happened the last time he pulled the trigger without thinking. He took his hand off his gun. Not yet, he whispered. Not yet, but soon. Some truths hide in plain sight, waiting for you to look close enough to see them. Ethan Cole was about to look, and what he found would either save him or destroy him. He told Claire about the ring that night. Sarah's, he said, laying it on the table between them, the one she was wearing when she died. Briggs pawned it a year ago. Claire stared at the small gold band. Her face was pale in the lamplight. Then he was there, that night. He was there. He probably set the fire. And Holbrook covered it up. How can you be sure Holbrook is involved? Because Briggs owes Holbrook money, a lot of money, and Holbrook has wanted my land for years. If I was gone, Briggs could sell it to him and clear his debts. Claire's hands were trembling. She pressed them flat on the table. What are you going to do? Ethan's jaw tightened. I am going to find proof, and then I am going to make them pay. That night, he waited until Briggs left for the saloon. Then he rode to Briggs's house. The place was dark and quiet. Ethan tied his horse in a grove of trees and approached on foot, moving through the shadows the way he had learned during his years as a ranger. The back door was unlocked, careless or confident. Inside, the house smelled of tobacco and stale whiskey. Ethan moved through the rooms, searching. He did not know exactly what he was looking for. Evidence. Something to prove what he suspected. He found it under the floorboards in the bedroom. A lockbox. Heavy. Locked. He broke it open with his knife. Inside were letters. 6 of them, all in the same handwriting. Ethan moved to the window where the moonlight was strongest and read. The first letter was dated 3 weeks before the fire. Handle the coal problem. Make it look like an accident. Your debt will be cleared when he is gone. It was signed with a single letter. H. Holbrook. Ethan's hands shook as he read the other letters. More instructions, more promises. A paper trail that led straight from Holbrook's office to the ashes of Ethan's home. And at the bottom of the lockbox, something else. A jar of kerosene. Half empty. The same brand Ethan had used on his own ranch. The same kerosene that had burned his house to the ground. Ethan heard the front door open. He pressed himself into the shadows, the letters clutched in his fist. Briggs stumbled in, drunk as expected. He was talking to himself the way lonely men do when the silence gets too loud. Should have finished the job, Briggs mumbled. Should have made sure he was inside, too. He collapsed into a chair, fumbling with a bottle. Within minutes, he was snoring. Ethan stood over him. His gun was in his hand. He did not remember drawing it. He could do it now. One bullet. Justice for Sarah. Justice for Emma. His finger tightened on the trigger. Then he saw it. On Briggs' pinky finger, too small to fit properly, sat another ring. Gold, with a small diamond. Sarah's other ring. Her engagement ring. The one Ethan had given her when he asked her to marry him. Briggs was wearing it like a trophy. Something in Ethan broke, but not in the way he expected. He did not shoot. Instead, he reached down and pulled both rings from Briggs' fingers. The man did not wake. He just snored on, oblivious. Ethan walked out into the night. He wanted Briggs to know. Wanted him to wake up tomorrow and realize someone had been there. Wanted him to understand that his secrets were no longer safe. Fear, Ethan thought. Fear was a better weapon than a bullet. For now. While Ethan was confronting his past, Claire was facing her own ghosts. She had gone to town that afternoon to pick up supplies. At the post office, the clerk mentioned something in passing. "Someone was asking about you, Miss Maddox. Fancy fellow from back east. Offered $50 for your address." Claire felt the blood drain from her face. "What did you tell him?" "Nothing." The clerk shrugged. "Ain't nobody's business where folks live." She walked to Ruth Whitmore's boarding house in a daze. Ruth was a kind woman, 67 years old, who had shown Claire the only real kindness she had experienced since arriving in Red Canyon. She took one look at Claire's face and sat her down with a cup of tea. "There is a man looking for me," Claire said. "The Boston fellow." Ruth nodded. "He came here too, said he was your brother." "I do not have a brother. I know, child. That is why I told him you had moved on to California." Claire grabbed Ruth's hands. Thank you so much." But she knew the lie would only buy her time. Victor Ashworth had found her trail, and men like Victor did not give up. That evening, back at the ranch, Claire found Ethan sitting in the cemetery on the hill. He was staring at Sarah and Emma's graves, the letters from Briggs' house spread out on the ground beside him. "I found proof," he said without looking up. "Holbrook ordered it. Briggs carried it out." Claire sat down beside him. "Are you going to kill them?" Ethan was quiet for a long moment. "I want to. God knows I want to, but there is a boy at the ranch who trusts me. And if I become a murderer, what does that make me? It makes you a man who avenged his family." Number Ethan finally looked at her. His eyes were wet. "It makes me the same as them." They sat in silence. The wind blew across the hilltop, carrying the smell of dry grass and dust. "There is something I have to tell you," Ethan said finally. "What?" "That boy. Tommy. I know why he looks familiar." Claire waited. 5 years ago, I was part of a raid on a Comanchero camp. It was dark, chaotic. I saw a figure holding a gun and I shot him." His voice broke. "It was a boy, 16 years old. He was a hostage. The Comancheros had taken him, forced him to hold the weapon, and I killed him." Claire felt the world tilt. "His name was Samuel Dawson," Ethan continued, "and Tommy is his brother. Oh God, he came here looking for the man who killed his brother. He does not know it is me. He does not know that the man who took him in, who fed him, who gave him a place to sleep, is the same man who destroyed his family." "Does he?" Claire started. "No, but he will." Ethan stood up, his shoulders bowed like he was carrying a weight too heavy to bear. "And when he finds out, he will hate me. And he will be right to hate me." Claire stood too. She took his hands in hers. "You did not kill that boy on purpose. You made a mistake in the darkness, in fear, in a moment you can never take back. Tell that to the dead boy. I cannot. But I can tell it to the man who has spent 5 years punishing himself." She stepped closer. "Do you want to die, Ethan Cole?" He did not answer for a long time. The stars wheeled overhead. A coyote howled somewhere in the distance. "I used to," he said finally. "Every day." But lately he looked at her. "Lately, I am not sure anymore. Then live. Make it mean something. Not because you deserve it. Maybe none of us deserve anything. But because the people who need you deserve your best effort." She squeezed his hands. "You cannot change what happened to Sam Dawson. But you can choose what happens to Tommy." Ethan looked at her. In the moonlight, her face was silver and shadow. He thought about the boy waiting at the ranch, about the woman standing before him, about the choice that lay ahead. "I have to tell him," he said. "Not today, but soon. Before he finds out some other way." "And then what?" "And then whatever happens, happens." Ethan took a deep breath. "But first, we deal with Holbrook and Briggs and whatever else is coming." "There is something else," Claire said quietly. He waited. "The man from Boston, Victor Ashworth. He is here, in Red Canyon, looking for me." Ethan's expression hardened. "Then we deal with him too." "How?" "I do not know yet." "But Claire—" He took her face in his hands. "You are not alone anymore. Whatever comes, we face it together. We face it." She closed her eyes. For a moment, they stood like that, two broken people holding on to each other in the darkness. Then they walked back down the hill, together. Whatever came next, they would face it side by side. They did not know that Victor Ashworth was already on his way to the ranch, and he was not coming to negotiate. Claire Maddox had run 2,000 miles to escape Victor Ashworth. Standing in the doorway of the only place she had ever called home, watching him walk up the road like he owned the world, she realized she was done running. The morning had started like any other. Ethan and Tommy had ridden out to the dam site early, leaving Claire to handle the house. She was kneading bread when she heard the sound of wheels on the dirt road. A carriage, not the kind you saw in Red Canyon. This one was polished black with brass fittings drawn by matched bay horses. City money. Claire wiped her hands on her apron and stepped onto the porch. The carriage stopped. The door opened, and Victor Ashworth stepped out. He looked exactly as she remembered. Tall, with gray at his temples and a beard trimmed close to his jaw. An immaculate suit despite the dust of the road. Polished shoes. The smile of a man who had never been told no. "Clara," he said, spreading his hands, "you have led me on quite a chase." Claire did not move from the doorway. Her hand slipped into her apron pocket, fingers closing around the scalpel she always carried now. "I am not Clara anymore. And you need to leave." Victor laughed. His laugh had not changed either, smooth, cultured, utterly without warmth. "I have come a very long way, my dear. I am not leaving without what is mine. I was never yours." Victor stepped closer. "The courts disagree. I have a warrant for your arrest. Signed by a Massachusetts judge, morphine theft. 3 years in the state penitentiary minimum." He pulled a document from his coat. It looked official. "Real. Unless, of course, I speak on your behalf. Tell them it was a misunderstanding." Claire did not flinch. "And what would that cost me?" Victor's smile widened. "Only what you should have given me freely. I would rather rot in prison." Victor's eyes went cold. "That can be arranged." The sound of hoofbeats interrupted them. Ethan rode up fast, Tommy right behind him. They must have seen the carriage from the ridge. Ethan swung down from his horse, his hand moving to his holster. "Problem here," he said. Victor turned. His expression shifted as he took in Ethan's weathered face, the gun on his hip, the hard set of his jaw. "This does not concern you, cowboy. This is a private matter between myself and my property. Ethan stepped forward. She is not property. She is family. And you are on my land. Family? Victor laughed again. You have known her what? A month? I have known her for 3 years. I have watched her work, watched her smile, watched her. I think you need to stop talking now. The temperature dropped. Victor, for the first time, looked uncertain. Before the situation could escalate further, another sound came from the road. More horses, more wheels. Judge Holbrook's buggy appeared over the rise, flanked by Silas Kane and 2 other riders. Victor's demeanor changed immediately. He became deferential, almost eager. Holbrook climbed down from his buggy, a heavy man with iron-gray hair and a face like a stone wall. He moved with the confidence of someone who owned everything he could see. Dr. Ashworth is a guest in my home, Cole. He has come a long way to resolve a legal matter. I have agreed to help facilitate. What kind of help? The lady has a warrant out for her arrest. As county judge, I have the authority to honor it. It is a lie, Claire said. Her voice was steady, though her hands were not. He fabricated those charges. Holbrook shrugged. That is not for me to decide. That is for the Massachusetts courts. He turned to Ethan. You have 24 hours to get your affairs in order. After that, I will send men to collect her. He paused. Do not make this difficult. Then they left. Victor tipped his hat to Claire as he climbed back into his carriage. His smile promised things she did not want to imagine. When they were gone, Claire let out a breath she had not known she was holding. He is going to take me back, she said, and no one will stop him because he is rich and respected and I am nobody. Ethan took her hands. His grip was firm, warm. You are not going anywhere. You cannot fight a judge and a warrant. This is not a gunfight you can win. No, it is a different kind of fight, the kind where you expose the truth. What truth? It is my word against his. It always has been. Then we find proof. Or we find people willing to speak. He looked into her eyes. You are not alone anymore, Claire. I know what it is like to have no one believe you. I know what it is like to be guilty of things you did not do. He lifted her chin with his finger. We do not run. We do not hide. We make them look us in the face and we tell the truth. And if that does not work, then I will do what needs to be done, and I will accept the consequences. That night, Claire packed her bag. It was 3 in the morning. The house was dark. She had made her decision. If she left now, Victor would follow her. Ethan and Tommy would be safe. She was saddling the horse when Tommy appeared in the barn doorway. You are leaving, he said. I have to. If I stay, they will hurt Ethan. They will hurt you. Running away does not protect anyone. It just makes the people who stay hurt more. You do not understand. Tommy stepped closer. His face was hard in the moonlight. I understand my brother died, and my mother ran. Drank herself to death in a room in El Paso. She thought she was protecting me by leaving. His voice cracked. You know what would have protected me. Her staying, her fighting, her being there even when it was hard. Claire stared at him. This 16-year-old boy who had lost everything and still understood more than she did. She unsaddled the horse. You are too smart for your own good, she said. I know. They walked back to the house together. Claire did not look back at the road that led away from the ranch. For the first time in 3 years, she was choosing to stay. Whatever came next, she would face it. Not alone. Not anymore. Ethan Cole had 24 hours to save Claire Maddox, which meant he had 24 hours to expose a murderer, turn a town against its most powerful citizen, and convince a former friend to betray everything he had sold his soul for. Easy. They gathered in the kitchen at dawn. Ethan, Claire, Tommy. 3 people against an empire. Ethan laid out what they had. First, the letters from Briggs's house. Proof that Holbrook ordered the fire that killed Sarah and Emma. Second, the kerosene jar. evidence that Briggs carried out the order. Third, Sarah's rings, trophies that Briggs had kept and pawned. It is enough, Claire said. Enough to destroy them both. Not enough. Ethan shook his head. In a court of law, Holbrook would call them forgeries. He would say, I planted the evidence. We need witnesses, people willing to stand up publicly. Who would dare? Ethan looked at her. I have one idea, but it is a long shot. An hour later, he found Silas Kane alone at the edge of town. The former ranger was sitting on a fence rail, watching the empty road. You have got nerve, Cole. Coming to me. I am not here to fight. I am here to offer you a way out. Silas laughed. Out. There is no out. Holbrook owns my debts. He owns half this town's debts. You think I am the only one who does his dirty work because I want to. I think you are a man who used to believe in something. I remember the ranger who saved my life at Comanche Creek. That man would not burn down houses with women and children inside. Silas went pale. That was not me. That was Briggs, I just knew. And I did not stop it. Then stop it now. Long silence. The wind blew dust across the road. If I testify against Holbrook, Silas said slowly, I am a dead man. If you do not testify, you are already dead. You just have not stopped breathing yet. Silas stared at him. Something shifted in his eyes. What do you need me to do? While Ethan worked on Silas, Claire went to Ruth Whitmore. I need your help, Claire said, and I need you to trust me. What do you need, child? Every woman in this town who has been looked at wrong by Victor Ashworth since he arrived. Every woman who has had to smile while a man touched her arm too long, stood too close, said things that made her skin crawl. Ruth's eyes widened. You think you are the only one. Claire shook her head. I think men like Victor never stop at one. Within hours, 3 other women came forward, quietly, privately, to tell Ruth what Victor had said to them, done to them, in just the few days he had been in Red Canyon. He had approached Mary Carlson in the general store, said things that made her face burn with shame. He had cornered Anna Hayes' 16-year-old daughter behind the church. Only her screams had driven him off. He had been prowling, even here, even now. We have enough, Ruth said. Enough to show the town what kind of man he really is. Tommy had his own mission. He rode to the neighboring ranches with a message. Town meeting tonight at the church. Everyone who has ever been wronged by Holbrook. Everyone who wants a voice. Some doors slammed in his face, but others opened. Farmers who had lost land to Holbrook's schemes. Widows who had lost homes. People who had been silent too long because they thought no one else would speak. One old rancher grabbed Tommy's arm. Son, if Cole is really standing up to the judge, tell him he is not alone late afternoon. Ethan found Joshua Briggs at the saloon. He sat down across from the man who had murdered his family. Briggs froze. Fear flickered in his eyes. I know what you did, Ethan said. His voice was quiet, controlled. I have the letters. I have the kerosene. I have my wife's rings. The ones you wore on your fingers like trophies. You cannot prove anything. I can. And I will, tonight, in front of everyone. Ethan leaned forward. But I am giving you a choice, Briggs. The choice I wish I had with other men I have killed. Briggs trembled. You can confess publicly. Tell the truth. Accept whatever punishment the law gives you. County jail. Territorial prison. I do not care. Or you can keep lying and I will let the whole town see who you really are. Holbrook will kill me. Holbrook is going to fall tonight one way or another. The question is whether you fall with him, or whether you walk out with whatever is left of your soul. Ethan stood. Church. Sundown. Do not be late. That evening, Claire and Ethan sat on the porch. The sun was going down, painting the sky red and gold. Are you ready? Claire asked. No. Good. Neither am I. She sat beside him. Their shoulders touched. Whatever happens tonight, she said, thank you. For what? For seeing me. Not the nurse, not the mail-order bride, not Victor's victim, just me. Ethan turned to look at her. You are the first person in 2 years who looked at this house and saw something other than a grave. I should be thanking you. They sat in silence as the last light faded. Then Tommy appeared in the doorway. Time to go. The Church of Red Canyon had seen weddings and funerals, baptisms and confessions. Tonight it would see something else. A reckoning. The church was full. Lanterns hung from the rafters, casting shadows that jumped and swayed like living things. And at the front, standing alone, Ethan Cole waited to burn down the life he had tried to rebuild. 70 people packed into the small space. Moore stood outside, peering through the windows. Holbrook sat in the front row, flanked by his men. Victor Ashworth beside him, smug and confident. Claire and Tommy were near the back with Ruth and the other women. Silas Kane stood against the wall, arms crossed, expression unreadable. Ethan walked to the front of the church, faced the crowd. Most of you know me, he began. His voice was steady. I have lived in this county my whole life. My father built our ranch with his own hands. My wife and daughter are buried on the hill overlooking our home. He let that sink in. 2 years ago they died in a fire. Everyone said it was an accident. I did not believe it. I just could not prove otherwise. He pulled the letters from his coat. Until now. He read the first letter aloud, the one dated 3 weeks before the fire. Handle the coal problem. Make it look like an accident. Your debt will be cleared when he is gone. The church murmured. This letter was written by Judge Holbrook. It was sent to Joshua Briggs, and 3 weeks after it was sent, my wife and daughter burned to death in their beds. Holbrook stood. This is ridiculous. Forged documents. Slander? Then explain this. Ethan held up Sarah's wedding ring. My wife was wearing this the night she died. I found it in a pawn shop in town. The owner told me who brought it in. Joshua Briggs. The murmur grew louder. Briggs had my wife's ring because he was in my house the night of the fire. He set the fire, and Holbrook paid him to do it. Every eye in the church turned to Joshua Briggs. He sat in a corner, pale and sweating. His hands were shaking. Ethan looked at him. You have something to say, Briggs. Long, horrible silence. Then Briggs stood. His legs could barely hold him. It is true. The words came out cracked, broken. God forgive me, it is true. Holbrook told me if I took care of Cole's family, he would clear my debts. I did not know they would be inside. I thought the house was empty. I thought, Shut your mouth, Holbrook roared. You fool! I cannot. Briggs was weeping now. I cannot carry it any more. He collapsed into a pew, sobbing. The church erupted. Holbrook tried to restore order. This man is clearly disturbed. Nothing he says can be trusted. He is telling the truth. Silas Kane stepped forward. Every eye turned to him. I knew about the fire, Silas said. I did not light it, but I knew. And I stayed silent because Holbrook owned me. He faced the crowd. Most of you owe Holbrook money. Most of you have done things you are not proud of because he asked. I am done. Whatever happens to me, at least I will sleep tonight. Holbrook's face went white with fury. Claire stood. There is more, she said. Her voice was calm, strong. Dr. Victor Ashworth came here with a warrant for my arrest. He claims I stole morphine from the hospital where I worked. That is a lie. Victor smiled. My dear, your desperation is showing. I am not finished. Ruth Whitmore stood. Then Mary Carlson. Then Anna Hayes. In the 3 days Dr. Ashworth has been in Red Canyon, Claire said, he has made inappropriate advances to at least 4 women, including Mrs. Hayes' 16-year-old daughter. Gasps rippled through the church. These are outrageous accusations, Victor sputtered. Mrs. Carlson, would you like to tell everyone what Dr. Ashworth said to you in the general store yesterday? Mary Carlson stepped forward. Her voice trembled, but her words were clear. He said I had surgeon's hands and offered to show me how he used his after dark. The mood in the church shifted. Dark, angry. The men of Red Canyon were suddenly very interested in the Boston doctor who had been sniffing around their wives and daughters. Holbrook made one last desperate attempt. "You are all being manipulated," he shouted. "Cole is a murderer himself. Ask him about Samuel Dawson. Ask him about the boy he killed in cold blood." The church went silent. Tommy stood. His face was pale. "What about Samuel Dawson?" Ethan closed his eyes, the moment he had been dreading. "Tommy," he said slowly, "Samuel was your brother, and I am the one who killed him." The silence that followed was absolute. Tommy stared at Ethan. No tears, just a question burning in his eyes. "Why did you not tell me?" And Ethan Cole, for the first time in 5 years, had no answer that would be enough. In the chaos that followed, two things happened that no one expected. A boy found the beginning of forgiveness, and a villain found redemption. Neither came easily. Both came with blood. The church erupted into chaos, people shouting, Holbrook's men trying to leave, townspeople blocking their path. Tommy pushed through the crowd to Ethan. "Is it true? You killed my brother." "Yes. He was 16. He was just a kid." "I know. You took everything from me, my brother, my family, my whole life." Ethan did not defend himself, did not explain about the darkness, the confusion, the terrible mistake. "I know," he said, "and I am sorry. Those words are not enough. They will never be enough. But they are all I have." Tommy stared at him. "Did you know? When you took me in, did you know who I was?" "Not at first. When I found out, I should have told you immediately. I was afraid." "Of what?" "Of losing the only good thing I had done in 5 years." Long, terrible silence. Tommy turned and walked out of the church. In the chaos, no one noticed Victor grab Claire's arm. "We are leaving," he hissed. "Now, before these savages tear me apart." Claire struggled, but Victor had a derringer pressed against her side. "Do not make me use this, Clara. You know I will." He dragged her toward the back door. Outside, the night was dark. Victor pulled Claire toward a waiting horse, the derringer never leaving her ribs. "Let her go, Ashworth." Ethan stood in the doorway of the church, his hand on his gun. Victor laughed. "I do not think so. She is my insurance. Once we are out of this territory, things will go back to the way they should be." Claire struggled. "I will kill you first." "With what?" "That little scalpel. Please." But Claire's eyes had moved to something behind Victor. He started to turn. "Dr. Ashworth, release the woman." Holbrook stood in the street, a shotgun in his hands. Victor's face twisted with confusion. "What are you doing?" "We had an arrangement. The arrangement is over." Holbrook's voice was strange, quiet, almost peaceful. "I have done many things I am not proud of. I have let my grief turn me into something my son would not recognize. But I will not stand by while a woman is dragged off to be violated." His voice cracked. "I had a daughter once. Before Daniel, she died when she was 8. And if any man had looked at her the way you look at Mrs. Maddox," he raised the shotgun. "Let her go." Victor hesitated, calculated, and made the wrong choice. He swung the derringer toward Holbrook. The shotgun roared. Victor Ashworth's body hit the dirt. The derringer skidded away unfired. Claire stood frozen, splattered with blood that was not hers. Ethan reached her, pulled her away. Holbrook lowered the shotgun. His hands were shaking. "I will turn myself in," he said, "for everything. The dam, the threats, Briggs, all of it. Why?" Holbrook looked at Ethan with eyes that had finally seen themselves clearly. "Because my son took his own life, believing he was weak. I spent 2 years trying to control everything so no one else would feel powerless. But all I did was make it worse." He handed the shotgun to Ethan. "I am tired, Cole. I am tired of being the monster." A shout from the edge of town. Briggs was trying to escape. He had stolen a horse and was riding hard for the open country. Tommy stood in the middle of the road, blocking his path. "Get out of the way, boy!" Briggs drew his pistol. Ethan's shot rang out. Briggs fell from his horse, not dead, gut shot. Ethan walked over, gun still smoking. This was the moment from the cold open. The circle completed. "Finish it," Briggs gasped. "Finish it. No, you are going to live. You are going to stand trial, and you are going to spend the rest of your days in a territorial prison remembering what you did." Ethan holstered his gun. "That is your punishment, Briggs, living with it." As Briggs was carried away, the first drops of rain began to fall. Fat, heavy drops hitting the dusty street. Then more, and more. The drought breaking at last. People poured out of the church, faces turned to the sky, laughing and crying as the rain soaked them to the bone. Claire found Ethan standing in the middle of the street, letting the water wash over him. She took his hand. Neither of them spoke. They just stood there, letting the rain wash away what could be washed, accepting what could not. Tommy Dawson watched from the shadows of the church doorway. He watched the man who had killed his brother. The man who had lied to him, the man who had taken him in when no one else would. He had every right to hate him, every reason to walk away. But as the rain fell and the street turned to mud and the town began to rebuild itself from the ruins of old corruption, Tommy found himself walking forward. Not toward forgiveness, not yet, but toward something that might, with enough time and grace, become it. The room that had been boarded shut for 2 years finally opened. Not because Ethan Cole had forgotten what he lost, but because he was ready to remember without being destroyed. 3 months had passed since that night in the church. The dam was complete, bigger and stronger than before. The town had named it Cole's Dam, though Ethan insisted it belonged to everyone. 15 families were drawing water now, and the land was coming back to life. Joshua Briggs awaited trial in the territorial prison in Austin. With Holbrook's testimony and Silas Kane's confession, he would never see freedom again. Judge Holbrook had turned himself in as promised. He was serving 5 years in the state penitentiary for his role in the conspiracy. He had gone quietly, almost peacefully, like a man finally putting down a burden he had carried too long. Silas Kane had left Red Canyon the day after the church meeting. Nobody knew where he went. A letter arrived a month later with no return address. Starting over. Thanks for showing me I still could. Tommy had stayed at the ranch but kept his distance from Ethan. They worked side by side during the day, ate meals at the same table, but the boy rarely spoke more than necessary. One morning, Ethan found him at the small memorial they had built for Samuel on the hill beside Sarah and Emma's graves. "You can come closer," Tommy said without turning around. "I will not bite." Ethan approached. "I have been thinking about what my brother would say," Tommy said. "About you. About all of this. What do you think he would say?" Tommy was quiet for a long moment. "I think he would say you did not mean to kill him, and hating you will not bring him back." He turned to face Ethan. "I am not saying I forgive you. I do not know if I can. But I am saying I do not want to spend my life the way you spent yours, drowning in something I cannot change." Ethan's eyes were wet. "So I am going to stay," Tommy said. "If that is still okay." "It is more than okay. And maybe," Tommy hesitated, "maybe I could call you something other than Mr. Cole. If you want?" Ethan could barely speak. "I would like that, son." Tommy did not flinch at the word, just nodded. They stood together at the graves, 2 people who had lost brothers, found each other and chosen to keep going. That afternoon, Ethan stood before the boarded window. Claire was beside him, Tommy behind. Ethan took a crowbar and began removing the boards. One by one they came free. Dust and stale air rushed out. The room was exactly as it had been. Emma's small bed with the faded quilt, Sarah's sewing basket in the corner, butterfly drawings on the wall, crayon colors still bright after all this time. Ethan stepped inside for the first time in 2 years. He picked up one of Emma's drawings, a stick figure family. Daddy, Mommy, me. She had written the words herself, the letters crooked and proud. He did not collapse, did not rage. He just held it gently, like something precious and fragile, which it was. This room should be Tommy's now, he said, if he wants it. Tommy looked uncertain. Are you sure? Emma would have liked you. She was always asking for a brother. He placed the drawing in Claire's hands. We will keep this, and the quilt. But the room should be lived in again. That is what Sarah would have wanted. Claire held the drawing carefully. That is what Sarah would have wanted. That evening they sat on the porch in the 2 rocking chairs. The sun was going down, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. Ethan reached into his pocket and pulled out a ring. Simple silver, his mother's. It is not much, he said. I do not have much, but I have got this ranch, and I have got a boy who needs a mother, and I have got whatever years I have left. He held out the ring. I am not good with words, Claire. Never have been. But I know this. You walked into my life when I was waiting to die, and you made me want to live again, and I do not want to do that living without you. Claire took the ring, examined it. You are right, she said. You are terrible with words. Ethan's face fell. Good thing I am not marrying you for your poetry. She slipped the ring on her finger. Yes, Ethan Cole. Yes. The next morning they walked up the hill to the cemetery, all 3 of them together. There were 4 markers now, Sarah, Emma, and 2 new ones. Memorials for Sam Dawson and Daniel Holbrook. Ethan had them made. Tommy stood before his brother's marker, lips moving in silent prayer. Claire knelt before Emma's grave and placed wildflowers. Ethan stood back watching his family. New and old, living and dead. Claire came to stand beside him. This is good, she said. What you are building here, we are building it, together. Tommy joined them. They started walking back down the hill. Behind them, 4 graves on a Texas hillside, watching over the land. Below, a house with smoke rising from the chimney. The sound of chickens. A dog Tommy had adopted from town running up to meet them. 3 figures walking down the hill toward home. The sun rising behind them, casting their shadows forward into the future. Ethan Cole had spent 2 years waiting to die in that house. But death, it turned out, was not interested in him anymore. What came instead was harder than dying. It was living, fully, honestly, with all the weight of what he had done and what he had lost. It was a second chance he did not deserve. But sometimes grace does not ask if you deserve it. Sometimes it just shows up, and the only choice is whether to let it in. A simple wedding at the Red Canyon Church. Ruth Whitmore stood beside Claire as her witness. Tommy stood beside Ethan. The church was half full. The people who had stayed, the people who had believed, the people who had chosen to start over. Claire wore a dress Ruth had helped her make. Nothing fancy, just clean and white and hers. Ethan wore the same suit he had worn to Sarah's funeral. But this time it felt different. This time it fit. The minister said the words, they exchanged vows, simple promises, to stand together, to fight together, to build something worth keeping. Tommy held the rings, Sarah's sapphire band for Claire, Ethan's father's ring for Ethan. When they kissed, the church applauded. 3 months later, Claire stood on the porch, her hand on her belly. The curve was visible now. Tommy raced across the yard, chasing the dog, laughing. Ethan rode in from the north pasture. He saw Claire, saw her hand on her stomach, and his face did something it rarely did 2 years ago. It lit up. He dismounted, walked to her, put his hand over hers. How are my 2 favorite people? He asked. 3, Claire said. Ethan blinked. Ruth thinks it might be twins. She has been wrong before, but still. Ethan's eyes went wide. Then he laughed. A real laugh, deep and surprised and full of joy. Tommy ran up. "What is so funny?" "Nothing. Everything. Get washed up for dinner." Tommy grumbled but complied. Claire leaned her head on Ethan's shoulder. "Think we can handle it?" she asked. "Two babies, a teenage boy, a ranch, and a dog that keeps eating the chickens." "No." "Good. Neither do I." They stood there, watching the sun set over the land they had fought for. In the distance, Cole's dam glittered in the fading light. Water enough for everyone. A promise kept. Some men spend their whole lives looking for a second chance. Ethan Cole found his at a train station, in the eyes of a woman no one wanted. She gave him a reason to live. He gave her a place to belong. And together, with a boy who chose forgiveness and children not yet born, and a piece of Texas that would carry their names long after they were gone, they built something no drought could destroy, no fire could burn, no lie could tear apart. They built a home. This content was carefully researched, developed, and manually edited by our team to deliver meaningful stories with valuable life lessons. Every narrative is crafted to entertain, inspire, and empower our audience. We believe that great stories can change lives, and we are committed to bringing you content that matters. Thank you for being part of our community.